So do we have this S2 object at heap area? Observe here, what is this method? Intern method. What is the implementation of intern method? What is the implementation of intern method? It will return reference value related to exact heap object available at SCP area. Observe the same statement in reverse way. Returns SCP area object reference value such that heap object data and SCP object data must be same. It always returns what? A reference value related to exact heap object available at SCP area. Getting SCP area object reference value only, it will return always. Getting it will return always SCP, that is string constant pool area object reference value only. It will not return this heap area object reference value. Observe here this meaning. Now you can get with very good clarity with this statement. Observe here. Now S2 is available at which area? At SCP. Now what happens here? Observe here. Now it will return S2 dot intern. S2 is what? S2 is not heap object, it is SCP object. Now it will return this 2a as the reference value to us. Okay, observe here, we can check even that one. Now let it be the string type, one of the variable. S3 equals to S2. Now there will be one more variable S3 with data as what? 2a. Okay, observe here. Intern method always returns what? A reference value of SCP area object. Reference value of object available at SCP area. Getting? And such that SCP object and heap object data must be same. Yes, mister, you are telling a heap object. Which object heap object means? On which reference value you are calling, that reference value object data and heap object data must be same. I think you get this. You are calling on which reference value? Yes means what? This one 936a, that intern. So it will check, is there any object available at SCP with the same object data? If it is so, I will return that object reference. Getting? Otherwise what is the condition we will do? Okay, now it will return what? It returned what? It returned what? This object reference. So S3 value is what? 2a. Okay, now think that what is the case if there is no object at SCP area. Getting? SCP area, meaning you are having one heap object. Getting? At a heap area you are having an object such that getting? You are having one heap area. You are having one object at heap area, and this object data is not at all available with any of the SCP objects data. Now what happens? Think that this one is referring with S4 having some address as what? 3e. So S4 value is what? 3e. Now this is what? Heap object. Can I call like S4 dot intern? Definitely you can call. No issues. Okay, with this object you will have what? Even intern method implementation. This is what? Which type object? String type object. Okay, here also you will have intern method logic. Getting? Now S4 dot intern method having logic to return a reference value related to exact heap object available at SCP area. Meaning is what? S4 object data is available with any of the objects. It is available within any of the object. If it is so, return that object reference value. Now Raju Mohandu is available anywhere at SCP objects as data. No, Mohandu is there, Raju is there. Differently they are having. We are not having with combination Raju Mohandu. I think we don't have that that object. Now what happens? Now observe here. If a particular heap object is not available, then it will create that. It will create if particular heap object data, getting heap object data, S4 object data not available means, then it will create a new object at SCP with heap object data. Getting? It will create a new object at SCP with heap object data. Observe here, heap object, what it is containing with this heap object data. It will create a new object at SCP with data as what? Heap object data. It will access this object data here. Getting? Observe here. Observe this one. So what happens here? Okay, it will create if a particular heap object data is not available at SCP, is not available at SCP area. Now it will create a new object. String object is created at SCP. At SCP, I created this object with heap object data, and which object reference you are calling, that reference value object data it will copy, it will access. Okay, now with the data as what? Raju Mohandu. Getting? That's it. Getting? It will create a new object at SCP with heap object data and returns this object reference value. This is what? An object. This one also will have an address 0x003333, and it will have hash code, let it be 1247. It will have the reference value, let it be as what? 3A. Okay, it will have the reference as what? 3A. Okay, this one only it will return to us. Okay, it will create a new object at SCP with heap object data and returns the SCP object reference value. Getting? SCP object reference value to us. Observe here how much implementations they have done here. Okay, now let me hold that one with one string object S5. Okay, let me hold that one with one string object S5. Okay, S5. Mister, you have done good, but you didn't create this object. How to create? Simple thing, we will do that one. Observe here, what is that? With whom Raju data is available? With S2 and S3. Simply call S3 dot concat of Mohandu. Getting? Now what happens? Concat method logic. Once again concat method. It's having an implementation to create a new object at heap area with old object data appending with this argument data appending. Getting? It will create a new object at heap area with old object data appending with this argument value, created, done everything. Now copy this one to S4. Okay, that's it. Okay, S4. Okay, now observe here. Okay, observe here. Now how to check whether this object created at SCP area. Simple thing, use what? SOP of SOP. Now this one only S4 dot intend, right? S4 is what? This one, Raju Mohandu. That value I am assigning to whom? S5. Okay, now S5 is what? 3A, so it will refer this one, right? Earlier statement. Okay, now so SOP of, how to check? Simple thing, put here one statement, SOP of S5 double equals to what? S4. S4. Now it will return what? Answer false. Both are different objects available at different areas. Observe here. Let me brush this one once. Please try to repeat this one. 2 to 3 times, so that you can feel very comfort. Okay, observe here. Definitely they'll ask such type of questions to us, because lots of implementations in these types of default methods. We have to be very clear about those things. Okay, now observe what we have done here. I have taken a string object. In which way? String s equals to new string. Okay, so first, before I go to that one, let me tell this one. What is that? What is the string class? Intern method implementation. It is so simple. It will always return a reference value of heap object, that is exact heap object related to exact heap object available at SCP related object reference value only it will return. Okay, when if both the objects data is same. I think this one will be done when if heap object and SCP object data is same. I think if heap object and SCP object data is same, then it will return what? It will return, what is that? SCP object related reference value. Getting? If it is both the objects data same. Okay, it will do like this. That is the internal implementation. So to prove that one, I have taken one string s equals to new a string having argument as what? More and literal. Because of this one, an object created at SCP, because of literal, it will have different address, hash code, and what is this? Reference value. Now because of new and constructor and new keyword, JVM will create a new object at SCP area also. Getting? And now this object created at SCP area, reference value only will be assigned to, yes, this is internal implementation. Simple thing, for this literal, are you assigning any value that is variable? No, you are not assigning. That's why it is kept as it is, and its value, reference value, not assigned to anything till now. This is because of some other statement here. We will check that one later. Okay, now observe. Now I am calling, and one more thing, string class is having intern method. Okay, and because of instance, that is object creation, all the instance methods implementation will be available with object. This is the proof for that one. So here, this is the proof for this one. Okay, now observe here. Now I am calling on heap object intern method. Now I am checking what is its behavior. We all are sure that if we are calling on heap object reference, that is intern method, or if we are calling heap object related intern method, Here also you are having intern method. This intern method related to SCP area, buffer area. Now I am calling heap object, heap area related object intern method. Okay, now s dot intern. Now what is happening here? It will check whether heap object yes data and SCP object data is same or not. If it is same, it will return this SCP object reference value to us. Now I am holding that one with S1. So S1 value is what? 1A. S1 can remove this object. That's the meaning of this one. Related, it will return a reference value related to heap, exact heap object. Exact means same data. What's the meaning of exact here? Same data. Getting? Related to same data heap object. Same data heap object available at SCP. Getting? So SCP object data and heap object data must be same. If it is so, that SCP area related object reference, it will return to us. That one I am holding here. Now how to check whether it is returning this object reference value only? How to check? We have to use double equals operator, but don't use hash code. Getting? Hash code method is overridden. Which one? Our string class. Hash code method is overridden within our string class, and also equals method. In which way they have overridden hash code method? Simple thing, that hash code method is having implementations, that is they have written logic based on string object data. So think that s dot hash code, it is returning data as double line. Why? Think that return value is what? Hint, and having implementation depending on object data Mohan. So it is returning double line. Now we are calling double equals to s1 dot hash code. Now s1 dot hash code, this is what? String type only, string class. Hash code method implementation only will be available with this object. Okay, now this hash code method is also having implementation to return an integer value depending on object data. Depending upon object data. Here Mohandu, and here Mohandu, that is SCP object data and heap object data both are same. So if it is returning here double line, definitely it will return here also double line, because hash code method implementation depending or based on object data. So if it is returning double line, here also double line mister, so it will return true. So it doesn't mean you're checking both are different objects. Think that if you're having some S9 here, okay, S9 reference value 936, it is also referring this object. If I use SOP of S9 hash code, okay, hash code, not hash code, okay, observe here, of course it's not that one. Yes, it is for this one. Okay, now so it doesn't mean that both are different objects, it is returning true. We can also think that there can be an object, there can be an object with two reference variables, that is two reference variables referring same object. Okay, so here what happens, then also it will return true. Then also it will return true. Yes, now it is so clear, friends. Think that you are having S9 reference variable. Okay, what is that? S9 hash code double equals to s dot hash code. Now also it returns what? True to us. So it doesn't mean that we are checking, we are getting confirmation that both are different objects. How to do that one? Simple thing. So you have to use what? Double equals operator for reference variables. Okay, so that where is S located at heap area, and where is S1 located at SEP area. S value is how much? 936A, and this S1 value is what? 1A. If it is returning false means both are different objects available at different memory locations. So this part we have understood. Yes, good. When it will return exact SCP object reference value, when if both heap object data SCP object data same. Now what happens if I'm calling intern method related to SCP object, okay, SCP object, still it will return SCP object reference value only. It is simple, not much logic is available. That is the example for this one. S2 equals to Raju, so Raju will get created SCP area. Now you are calling S2.intern. What happens? It will always return SCP object reference value only. We are confirmed that one, okay. That's why this statement now this statement can be very clear because of this one, I think, okay. It will always return what? Exact heap object available at SCP area, meaning is that one always returns SCP object reference value only. That is the proof for this one. S2.inter, you are calling here S object available at which area? Heap area, so it is returning SCP object reference value. Now S2 is available where? At SCP, mister. Getting? Now it is, shall it check one thing, do we have any duplicates here? No, duplicates not possible within SCP area. Duplicates not possible to us, okay. Now so this object reference only, it will return the same SCP object reference only, this intern method will return. So that one I'm holding with S3. So if I check these two things, it will be same, okay. Or else if you want, you can write one statement here as what? SOP of S3 double equals to ES2. What you will get? True here. It gives both are referring same object, no different object created, whereas here different object created, okay. Now observe this one. Now what if the case like corresponding heap object data is not available with any of the objects available at SCP? What is that? Observe here. If the heap object data, this one, is not available with any of the, forget about this one. If heap object data not available with any of the SCP objects, now what is the scenario? What is the condition? What the intern method will do means simple thing. It will create a new object at SCP. Observe here. If a particular heap object data not available at SCP, getting heap object data is not available at SCP area objects, getting objects, it will create, it means what? Inter method having that implementation. It will create a new object at SCP with the heap object data, and what it will do? Return heap object reference value only. What it will do? It will return that newly created heap object reference value only. Now it is creating a new object. Observe. It is creating what? A new object. How to check both are different? Observe. So first I am creating an object at heap having some different data such that, observe here, such that this object data not available at SCP objects, getting as the data, this object data not available with any of the SCP area objects as data, okay. Now observe here, because of this literal, this object only will be reused, but you are not assigning this literal to any of the reference, so no issues, okay. This thing we didn't covered earlier, okay. Observe. So S3 dot concat. What is concat method logic? What is concat method logic? It will create a new object at heap area friends, okay, with new data. What is that? With new data means with accessing the old object data and appending it to this argument data at heap area. Getting what it will do? Always creates an object at heap area. Getting with old object data. S3 object is what? Where is S3? This one. With accessing this object data and appending this argument literal, it will create a new object with data as what? With this object data and this literal. Getting this object data. What is that? With accessing the old object data and appending that with this argument, it will give one resultant literal. That is what? Raju. That one will be placed within this newly created object at heap area. At which area? At heap area. That is the implementation of our concat method. Okay. Now, do we have Raju Mohan do literal as the data within any of SCP objects? No. Now you are calling on on S4 intern method. What happens? Simple thing. It will create a new object at SCP area with heap object data and returns this reference value to us. That one we are holding with S5. That's why S5 value will be as what? 3a. SOP of S5 double equals to S4. It will tell if it is returning false means it gives the meaning to us. What is that? This S5 is different object created at SCP area, and this S4 is different object created at heap area. So it gives the meaning to us. Intern method created the new object at SCP area. Okay, so what we have learned here, observe, very important. Okay, tricky things are there. Please try to repeat 3 to 4 times. At first it will take a little like 10 to 15 minutes. Later it will take 5. Later just 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, what we have learned, 3 scenarios as part of this intern method. One is what? If heap object data available exactly at SCP object, what it will do? It will return this heap object SCP object reference value. Other one is what? If you are accessing this intern method on SCP object reference variable, it will return this object reference value only to us. This one we have learned. But the other one, particular heap object data not available with any of the SCP objects as data. If the particular heap object literal or data not available with any of the SCP objects data, then what intern method will do? It will access this heap object data. It will create a new object at SCP only. Concatenate will create that object at heap area. Okay, observe, heap will always point what? SCP area only. Okay, heap always, intern always points SCP area. Concat always points to heap. Okay, now so it will create a new object at SCP area with data as what? With heap object data, with data as what? Similar to heap object data. So to check both are different, what we are doing? Once again going to double equals operator. So if I do compile and run this piece of code, first you should get here as what? Here it should be as what? Of course, okay, one is true and this one just for analysis thing I have taken, not a big issue. This one true false, other one is what? True false. Okay, so true false should be the answer to us. Please let me compile this one and execute. Okay, I hope you are very clear of this one. Okay, please let me compile and execute this one. Just a minute, observe. So let me take a class called EA. Okay, now what is that? Observe here. Now let me now take what is that string s equals to string s equals to new string of what is that Mohandu, and other one is what string. Observe here, because of intern method calling on heap object, what happens? It will create, it will check whether that heap object data available within any of the SCP object. If it is so, it will return that object reference value. How to check that one? Not by using hash code method. Okay, not by using what? Hash code method. Okay, here it will return what? True to us. Okay, it will return true to us. Now observe here. Okay, how to check that one? By using double equals operator between two reference variable values. Now here it will return what? True. Here it will return what? False. Okay, now other one is what? If you are calling internal method, internal method on SCP object, if you are calling internal method on SCP object reference value. Now observe here. Okay, on a reference variable or value, both are same. So because of S2, what happens? This above statement, there will be an object creation at which area? At SCP area. This one, friends, observe, this one will be created because of this statement. Getting? And no object with data as Raju, because this is what? SCP object creation statement or instruction. Okay, observe. Now observe here. Now what it will return? It will return the SCP object reference value only. Here it will return what? Same object reference. Okay, let it be S3, guys. Okay, let it be as what? S3. Okay, now if I do check this S1, okay, if I do check this S2 and what is that? S3, what it will give to us? What it will give? True. Okay, because both are going to refer what? Same object. Okay, so it will return true to us. Okay, now if you are calling internal method on heap such that heap object corresponding SCP data not available, heap object data not available at any of the SCP objects. Observe here. If I am calling internal method on heap object reference such that this heap object data not available within any of the SCP objects as data, this thing, within any of the SCP objects as data, what it will do? It will create a new object by or with accessing old object, that is heap object data, and returns what? Heap object reference value only. To check whether both are different, we are using this statement. Okay, observe. Now what happens? Let me put S3 dot concat of what is that? Mohandu. Let it be string S4. Now call on this S4. Now observe here, S4 is referring what? A heap object. Why heap object? Concatenate method always creates objects at heap area, friends. Okay, at heap area. So now call on S4 intern method. Getting? Intern method. What happens? What happens because of this statement? There is no S4 object data within any of objects available at SCP. This internal method will create a new object with heap object data, getting, that is with accessing heap object data or by accessing heap object data, and that heap object, that is newly created object, where it will create new object, where it will create at at SCP area, that object reference it will return to us now. Okay, now what is this? String. Okay, now observe. Okay, now how to check both are different? Simple thing. What we have to do? You have to take double equals operator, S5 double equals to S4 or S4 double equals to S1. Here it should return to us false. So here it should return to us true. Okay, now it should return here as what? False. It gives that meaning to us as what? Different objects. Okay, that's the meaning, guys. Okay, false means that's the meaning to us. Okay, if it is true means what is that? Same object. Okay, now observe here. Let me first compile this piece of code. Okay, observe. What is the source code? File name tester.java. Okay, the source code file name, observe here, tester.java. Okay, now let me put javac tester.java. Compile successfully. Now what is the main method corresponding class name? Capital A. Okay, put java space capital A. True false, true false. Getting? I hope you understand this one. Okay, so what is our answer? True false, true false. Okay, observe here. Okay, true false, observe here, true false, true false. Observe here, getting answer is so simple, but understanding the internal things somewhat difficult. Just practice this for once or twice, and later it will be taking very little time for you to understand this one. Okay.